I first took on SMT many years ago, and I'll describe what my role is here in a few minutes, one of my board members, Richard Charles, who is the ex-Chief Constable of Lincolnshire Police, said to me, one thing you should do as editor of this magazine is frame where the industry goes. Don't be taken by the industry where it goes, frame it by getting together with the top people in the industry and dictate where it goes. And that's what we're trying to do here, to try and get the pulse of the industry and the wider world of commerce and government and politics and the social agenda, and try and frame the best path forward, certainly for the end user. So, following on from that, we want to pose, I think, certainly Alistair does, and you'll see some questions in a minute from Alistair's the first part of the morning. We want to pose some salient questions and try and get some answers to those questions. Some of them being, what factors are driving the speed of migration from analogue to IP? And we all know that the IP take-up in this country particularly is slower than most other areas for some reason. I have my own views on that, and they'll come out later in the day, I expect. Are we going to reach a tipping point in this regard, and if so, when? The hope would be that we would. If you look at the quality of the systems on show at IFSEC, for example, there is no doubt that IP and HD and megapixel are fantastic technologies. It's just about the use and the training of the use of those systems we need to get to grips with. And what about the whole change agenda of convergence? Convergence is a big word in the industry at the moment. There's a report just released, and Matthew will know about this. Frost and Sullivan, partly involved with that, Security Institute and various other organisations. That was launched, and I was meant to be speaking of that in Portugal last week, in fact, but a volcanic eruption put paid to that, I'm afraid. But we will be having that debate at IFSEC on the Monday at lunchtime, noon in the Select Lounge. So if you fancy coming on to a convergence debate, that's your time and place. Then there's the edge or the centre debate. Whatever more functionality heading to central systems or flow towards the edge? I think that's also a central question to be answered. I mentioned megapixel technology a second ago. Is that really the game changer, in inverted commas, it's meant to be and it's purported to be? There are all strong rumours that HD will be the theme of IFSEC this year, I've heard. You can normally gauge that after the first year of the show as a rule. Previous years have been analytics, and there's various views on what analytics are in terms of object detection, motion detection, etc. Previous years, also OnVIF was a key theme when that was first announced, and we were the first to the journalistic market with that by having a Twitter feed straight to our site. So within 2 minutes of that being announced, it was on our site, which we were quite proud of. Is it also possible that all physical security systems will be managed by IT departments as opposed to security departments? Now you're seeing this more and more in companies these days. I think primarily from a cost perspective, they're tending to morph away from what you might call a pure security practitioner to even having procurement people buying security. Now when it goes down that route, I'm strongly against that, to be fair. I can see the economic argument for that, but I think going down that route, procurement buying security is purely a pounds and pence exercise. With respect, they don't know much about the discipline. And that's when you get into hot water as far as security is concerned, certainly on the guarding side. So are there inherent dangers of going down that route? I think there are. With less reliance on humans and more reliance on systems, will the guarding companies have to change their outlook and their processes? I think that's pretty much inevitable without wishing to frame the conversation. A lot of them have bought up systems divisions and systems arms in the last few years. They're looking to provide a one-stop shop, but is that giving you a quality service? Should it be a separate guarding and systems provision? And what are the barriers to change in the UK, as I mentioned earlier on? I think this industry tends to be conservative in this country with a small c. It may well be conservative with a big C in a few weeks' time, who knows? But we need to try and get around this set mindset, because you've been doing things a certain way for the last 30 years. Should you continue to do them the same way for the next 30 years? I think we are hampered by the closed mindset we tend to have. So those are just some of the questions we want to address and answer in this and subsequent forums. So I'd like this to be really a full and frank discussion. As I said, I'll be taping the contents of today's debate, but I'm more than happy to pass it through any or all of you prior to publication to make sure we're happy with the way you're represented. And as Don will know from previous experience, and Alistair as well, that's the way I work as a journalist. I don't believe in misrepresenting people and spending the next week apologising for the last one. And again, Sean will know that's how I operate. The day's split into two parts essentially. The first part will be hosted and chaired by Alistair, and we'll look at the systems side of the industry. I will then come in post coffee break, when we're all still awake hopefully, and I will look at how that affects the whole security management regime and the end user. Where is the end user going in relation to systems development? Before I hand over to Alistair, could I just ask each of you to introduce yourselves, say who you are, what you do for a living, and what your sort of potted background is. I'll begin with myself. As some of you will know in the room, I'm Brian Simmons, the editor of Security Management Today, in print as was until 2008 for 8 years, and the subsequent 2 years SMT online. We're now a fully digital operation. My channel of the website sits within Info for Security, which is our overarching web portal, which is part of UBM Live Security Portfolio, which includes IFSEC and numerous other initiatives, including the Excellence Award, which many of you have been to over the years, and some of you have won. I've edited the magazine in both print and digital for about 12 years now. I'm very proud to say that we've won 3 awards during that period. My biggest raison d'etre, I think, personally, is that I want to see security management recognised as a chartered profession. And on the basis of that, I'm a member and honorary fellow of the Security Institute, and hopefully next year, if the Privy Council says yes, touch wood, it will be a chartered security management profession as of this time next year.
Alistair Walker, I'm representing Instatek Digital today.